Well, it is time. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Demystifying the Journey to Zero Trust Security. In today's session, you'll see a deep dive into the journey to achieve zero trust security within your organization, and also how to apply this model. This deep dive will show you the key components of zero trust security in action and how you can apply it to your teams. As always, this meeting is being recorded and all registrants will receive a link to view it later this week. We ask you to stay on mute because this is a sizable audience for today's content. All right. Hey everyone, my name is Nick Lasifko. I'm a sales development representative here at Worsta. Joining me today is Pete Hoff, Worsta's Vice President of Cybersecurity and Risk. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get started. Thanks everyone for being here. In case you didn't know already, this event is being hosted by Worsta. Our mission here at Worsta is to help organizations maximize their use of the cloud. We work side by side to help our clients make good technology decisions and grow their businesses in ways they wouldn't have the ability to do otherwise. This helps organizations develop cultures of continuous innovation powered by real-time collaboration. With all that collaboration, however, organizations have a lot to worry about in terms of data security. So that's why we're here today and why we've got our Google security expert, Pete, on the call.
Hey, everybody. I was just on mute. Rookie mistake, but I'm excited to be here. So we are celebrating Cybersecurity Month. Spooky corporate cyber stories is the theme here. And we're going to talk about one in particular. There is a theme, obviously, but in the past, we've seen other companies like SolarWinds, Colonial Pipeline, more recently, Twilio and Uber have a lot in common. The attackers actually succeeded by targeting the identity of the identity credentials of the business. I'd like to focus on Uber's recent cyber attack. There were 57 million Uber users, 600,000 driver's license numbers, and I'm sure some internal information was also exposed, but pretty huge impact on their customers. I'm definitely one of them, and I'm sure a few of you are as well. Apparently, the attackers had a contractor's password and convinced the contractor to grant multi-factor authentication access. I think they were talking to him over a blog or a Slack channel or something along those lines, and the contractor authorized the access, and off to the races they went. The contractor's password was likely obtained on a dark web site. No one really knows for sure, but there's an ecosystem around hackers today, and it likely included things like keyloggers and malware on that contractor's endpoint. The results were a guilty verdict delivered Wednesday to Uber's former security head, Joe Sullivan. He was their CISO. He was convicted by the FTC of obstruction of proceedings. The FTC was investigating Uber at the time, and his failure was apparently a felony. This kind of thing does impact how breaches are handled, and there's some speculations that executives and boards will be a lot less likely to cover things up and voluntarily report things that are cyber incidents. It brings up an important point that I wanted to make about the FTC. The FTC was the enforcement body, and it's important for a couple reasons. FTC exposes companies that are not protecting customer information. Real simply put, under Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act, the agency prohibits deceptive and unfair business practices. This isn't really well defined within their language, but generally speaking, it just means that you didn't protect your customers' email addresses. Maybe you were sharing geolocation information with third parties. Maybe you didn't have a privacy policy, or maybe you did and you didn't follow your privacy policy. Those are unfair trade practices because it doesn't take into account the customer and their security expectations of the company. So it's important to understand that while your business may not be regulated by specific requirements like HIPAA, banking, or SEC rules, the FTC is looking out for the customer. Companies need general cybersecurity hygiene, and the topics we will cover today will give you a foundation of areas to consider following. We suggest following a framework to meet best practices, and this presentation, we're going to focus on the Google Zero Trust model made possible by BeyondCore. So, what is Zero Trust? I'm sure it's a big buzzword here. Generally, it assumes that there is no implicit trust granted to devices or user accounts. It doesn't matter where your location is, if you're internal to a corporate network at your business or traveling, working from home, everything that you do is considered insecure until you validate all of those aspects of your security. We believe the Zero Trust framework should be the foundation to ensure your business is protected from foreseeable threats. And we use the example of building a house. Zero Trust is the foundation, along with a strong structural component around the house. Zero Trust gives you everything you need to at least establish the basics before you put your stuff in the house and protect it from any kind of weather and storms and hurricanes like we saw down here in South Florida. Zero Trust evaluates the security of your data from the time you log in to when you are accessing your data, and it evaluates the context in which you are in. So, what are the key areas that are included in Zero Trust security? I like to start with the basics. First and foremost, enable all security settings. Consider this. If there is no cost, no impact to the business processes, then it should be no problem to enable the feature. There's tons of features that are available within Google security tools. We're going to go through the myriad of Google security tools and then touch on the Zero Trust next. So there's lots of stuff listed here. You can see between Google Workspace requirements, mobile device management, email security. I'm sure all of you deal with phishing all the time. And there are some advanced things within securing devices and even context. We're going to get into context-aware access. All of these things that you see on your screen today is the core of what we're dealing with in terms of Zero Trust. So let's move on. Let's simplify and demystify this process. I generally like to break this down into three general areas. The first is identity. Identity deals with the employees, the contractors, your partners. How do you create that user access? We first have to establish that user. And there's lots of controls around the identity itself. Next is the device. And the device is pretty paramount. As you saw in the Uber case today, Uber's devices must not have been secured. Somehow they got the password from that contractor. And I'm going to guess that it was probably through malware or keylogger or something along those lines, or he went to a website and thought he was changing his password. He was phished, so to speak. But devices are really important to manage. It's important to also take control of the device and ensure that you set some standards around passwords, encryption, security, local admin access, those types of things. And you can do that with Google today. Google Workspace is very effective in these areas, and you can achieve quite a bit. The third pillar is around your applications, and that is you want to make sure that your applications are given to the right people at the right time for the right purpose. Basic access control is really the center of this conversation, but application security and even authentication to these applications for things like third-party apps, SaaS applications that might actually live outside of Google Workspace can be controlled with two-factor authentication and password vaulting. But at the base of all of this is the context of the device and user. So what do I mean by context? Well, this whole conversation wraps itself around defining where your user is, what your user is doing, and what they're accessing. And Google has established context-aware access based upon a number of parameters. We're going to get into some of those details and cover those specific policies that you can enable. And we're going to provide you a demo at the end here, showing kind of some of the things that are effective. But what we're going to cover is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to get into some real good areas here. So moving along, let's start with identity management. Your users are not just your employees, but also your vendors, your partners, your contractors, and customers, all who require different types of access to different information and applications from different places and different devices. Google created a new approach for identity and access management to enable every employee to work from untrusted networks. Beyond Core, Zero Trust shifts access from the network perimeter to individual users and devices, allowing employees to work more securely from any location. Identity management capabilities allow you to automate settings and users from your HR management solution.
Pete, that sounds great. Your IT team doesn't have to provision the account anymore and can just follow these steps. And also HR solutions can sometimes create role-based access groups or control groups on the fly, even if you're in Workspace or GCP. I kind of think that's pretty cool.
That's exactly right. Many of the HR management solutions out there are establishing links to be able to connect, creating the user in the HR solution, and it gets created in Google Workspace. And in turn, you can actually automate that into other applications as well. These are big time savers for IT. And it also allows you to terminate access when HR terminates the employee access. So I don't know how many of you have been audited, but many times in audits, they'll say, well, was the person terminated in a timely manner? You can guarantee when it's automated from an HR system. There's one other area that I'd like to talk about in regards to the identity, and that is the identity assurance. And that's two-factor authentication. So the way that this actually comes into play is 2FA or multi-factor authentication speaks for itself. Many of you have probably heard of this. Google's implementation of this reduces risks, and even for third-party applications that utilize SSO.
Yeah, Pete, like my favorites is the Google prompt. If I sign in through Gmail on another app or even a third-party app, Gmail may have me just open the app on my phone or another device and just log in and approve it. I think it's pretty useful in most scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorite methods as well. The most effective two-factor authentication is the physical tokens, the Titan keys or YubiKeys. And I always recommend this for administrators and executives. That second factor with the physical token is very, very effective. Number 2 on my list is Google Prompt, just like you mentioned, and number 3 is probably the Authenticator. And the Authenticator is a useful tool as well. I think users have to put a little more work into using the Google Authenticator, but it's definitely an outstanding solution. Before I move on, though, I want to talk about text or phone call with a PIN. It is frowned upon for organizations to use this, but I'll make this point. If you didn't use anything, that's a lot worse. I would strongly suggest that if all you had was the capability to get a text with a PIN, I would say go ahead and use it. And don't bypass the opportunity to have a second factor on an authentication. Your users are going to be better protected that way. So moving along, our second pillar is device management. Device management is simple with Google Enterprise, but can be complex depending on how you approach it. For Windows and Chrome devices, we have you fully covered in Google Workspace. It's important to remember all devices, including Mac, Chrome devices, and Windows, can apply security controls for OS verification, encryption, passwords, and device wipes. On mobile devices, as long as you manage them with Workspace, you can enforce mobile device wipes as well. And that simplifies the process. Last but not least, the policies that you define for your devices can be applied based upon the context of the device. And again, I'll talk about this a little later, but context means everything. Your device, where it's at, if it's the first time you're logging in from that device, All of those metrics and policies, they matter when you're trying to gain access. So let's move along. Application authorization, that's our last pillar. And that means connecting the right users to the right apps from the approved location. That sounds difficult, but it's important that you can use structured OUs within Workspace and also security groups to enable and disable applications based upon the business need.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to this, Pete. Google has also simplified SSO for over 200 enterprise SaaS applications. This includes the capability to enforce 2FA on a third-party application and can also simplify the launch of those apps as well with just a single interface, which is pretty neat and convenient.
Those are awesome points. It's really important. Always grant the access and only the access that's needed. That's the principle of least privilege. Least privilege is a good way to look at this. If you're still in a data center, there are also ways to eliminate VPNs and establish authentication and SSO for apps as well. If you want to talk to us a little more in detail, we can cover that. We're not going to get into identity access management or identity access proxy in GCP in this presentation, but IAP is a way to eliminate VPNs and access applications in your data center without using the VPN. So moving along, this is really the piece I think that's most exciting and pulls it all together. You've got all of your aspects of the three pillars: your user, your identity, and your applications. But without the context, it's difficult to secure everything all the time. Context-aware access allows you to pull many of your controls together to enforce policies based upon the context of the user. Create granular access control policies to apps based upon attributes. With cloud identity, for example, this is one of the aspects of BeyondCore and the identity management tool. You can define context around users like an administrator or a developer or executives, and even financial services personnel. You can define location or geolocation where the user is coming from. You can also, some of the device security settings, you can check our OS versions, encryption status, company-owned devices, and screen locks. And real important, I want to get into this a little bit. This is on the advanced side, but we have advanced context-aware access controls. There are some controls where you can establish a policy for your Chrome browser version. Make sure your Chrome browser is a certain version, or even is it enabled for security events such as blocking downloads from a DLP rule. We don't get into details on this either in this presentation, but you can stop users from downloading certain DLP triggered data to a local machine from a Chrome browser. If you're managing your devices as well, and you need to increase the security by adding a token or certificate to the device to ensure that it's your device for your organization, you can validate that with an enterprise certificate associated with the device and ensure that your endpoint verification policy is enforced with context-aware rules. Now, this is an advanced rule. It's not simple to set up, but we can certainly help you do that. We're going to present you with a demonstration setting up context-aware access for an administrator. This is going to ensure the admin is located within the US. And at the end, the user will get a pop-up that says, hey, you're not authorized if you're not in the US.
Pete, this is great. And today we have a special guest, Patrick De La Puerta, Worsted's digital workspace practice lead here. And he's going to walk us through a demo showcasing that context-aware access and some of its neat features as well.
So we're going to talk about context-aware access in Google Workspace. Context-aware access, high level, allows you to create granular access controls, security controls for apps based on attributes such as identity, location, device, security status, IP address, things like that. Some example use cases are allowing access to workspace apps and other third-party apps that you have behind Workspace from only company-issued devices. You can allow access to drive only if the user is using an encrypted disk or a laptop that is encrypted. Or you can restrict access to apps from outside the corporate network or outside of a VPN network if you provide one in your network. We'll take a look at some examples here, or look at the console directly. Context-aware access is exclusive to the Enterprise Plus SKU, and you'll find that under Security, Access and Data Control, and Context-aware access. When first enabling or looking at context-aware access, you do have to turn on the service itself. The service will be turned off for everybody. You can turn on the context-aware access service without impact, but please note, if you do create access levels and assign access levels, that could impact your user's ability to access Google Workspace. When starting with context-aware access, you're going to start with an access level. So we'll click and create a new access level here. We'll give this a name. In the conditions box here, we can see we have a couple of options for creating conditions. You can use the basic wizard editor to add your conditions, or you can use an advanced CEL language to write your conditions. We'll use the basic wizard here and add an attribute. From the attribute selector, we'll notice a few options that they do have here. IP subnet, as mentioned, geographic origin, device policy, device OS. If we were to select IP subnet, for example, I would simply need to add the subnet of the IP network that my users are allowed to access or not allowed to access from Google Workspace. So maybe internally or via VPN, I only want to allow access from those addresses. I would enter those here. You can do does not meet these attributes. So, for example, if you have a private VPC or some other network segment that you don't want to be able to access Workspace, for example, you would be able to block that network specifically. Geographic origin allows you to geofence access to Workspace based on the geographic origin of the user. So if they are connecting to Workspace from a country listed here that you've created a rule for, they would either be permitted or prohibited from accessing Workspace. Device policy, device OS. So device policy, if you have used a Google MDM to create mobile device policies, you are able to specify rules around what devices can connect based on those policies. So, for example, if you want to enforce that a screen lock is required, you would specify a policy for that here. Lastly is device OS. Device OS allows you to control based on build numbers the OSs, the OS versions that are allowed to connect to Workspace. If you, for example, wanted to limit access to Google Workspace to only Windows 10 and above, you would enter the build numbers for such, and only those version numbers would be allowed to access Google Workspace. After you've defined your access levels, you're going to apply those access levels to your users via OUs or security groups. So you can see here on this middle navigation screen here, we have the option to select an organizational unit and apply the access levels that we've created to any of the Google services or third-party services that we have put behind Google Workspace. I've selected a few here, and now I'm going to assign an access level to those services, and we'll call that the admin's access level. So that is the access level that I've created and want to apply to those services. Go ahead and save those services. And now we have an access policy that requires a specific geographic location before accessing Google Workspace. The last piece that you can configure here is your user message. Your user message is the error message or the screen that is presented to a user when they can attempt to access a service that is blocked for failing to meet conditions. So you do have the option to add your own custom remediation message, and you would do so here. Context-aware access is part of what collectively will build your BeyondCorp experience. BeyondCorp is a Google Zero Trust model for accessing corporate network information. context-aware access, along with Chrome policies, plus Beyond Corp Enterprise, which allows you to put your on-prem applications, your legacy applications, behind the same contextual awareness capabilities available to you as a workspace customer, or if you're using Google Cloud as an identity. So we're going to talk about context-aware access in Google Workspace.
There we go. So it's definitely difficult to lock things down sometimes, and to have an effective cybersecurity program. Context-aware access has a lot more power than what was just displayed here, but hopefully you get an idea for the types of things that you can lock down for your users using the Google ecosystem. First step is to enable great security controls. We can help set those up. We can also help you extend the Zero Trust framework across your identity management, your device management, and your application security and single sign-on. This helps determine if Zero Trust, we can help determine if Zero Trust is great for your organization. And if you want to, we can evaluate how you've implemented your security controls. We can do an assessment and move into mitigation and help you fix any holes that you identify.
Pete, that's great. And thankfully here at Worsta, we've got some various services, training, and offers that can help you implement your Zero Trust at your organization. We'll be in touch soon after today's session to provide you with some of the resources you need to get started. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask during our Q&A, which will start soon. But first, we wanted to just go over some of Worsta's October offerings. At Worsta, today we are offering 20% off all security services that we showed above until the end of October. A cybersecurity assessment is a great way to get started on securing your organization, especially with this amazing discount. Our team will be reaching out to you to discuss this as well as how we can help your journey to Zero Trust, like said before. And then with that, do we have any questions?
A lot of topics covered here. There we go.
Dave, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, what exactly is in a cyber? What was it? The cybersecurity audit. What is that, and do you get out of that at the end?
So we actually provide organizations a security and cloud risk assessment. This risk assessment can be aligned with any standard out there that most companies deal with. For example, HIPAA, FedRAMP, HITRUST, SEC standards, whatever the standards are that you need to meet, we can align your organization's security settings with those standards and your policies. We go in and interview your organization, evaluate your policies that have been written for the organization. If they're not there, we can actually even help you create those, and then align all of your settings and set up these tools for you to use. A lot of the challenges for organizations these days is small to mid-sized businesses don't have specific dedicated personnel to support some of these areas. We fill that gap for you and help you get an understanding of where you stand in terms of your security settings and how to address them.
Good question, Dave. Looks like Philip, you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. How's it going?
Good. How's it going?
Good. Hey, wanted to get your take on this. So as we talk about Zero Trust and identity and Google Cloud and all that, it really works really well for scenarios where I control the device, I control the identity, and I control the service where they're going to access. Does any of this try to speak to or address or just kind of defer other risk scenarios where you control the device, the identity are your people, but they're up against the services which are like the infinite universe of the internet, right? So is there endpoint protection sort of things where I can't employ IAP and I don't have control over the end service? What's your take on whether or not this can be applied to that kind of risk scenario?
So there's a number of security controls that are present already in Google Workspace. They do things like sandboxing. Files that are emailed will be evaluated from a security perspective for malware. Google will evaluate URLs and have a pop-up warning for a user if a URL looks like it's unsafe. There's tons of other things around security monitoring, email encryption. In terms of sharing externally, you can set sharing capabilities for data and also stop that data from being downloaded to local machines. So in your particular case, while Google does not have an EDR solution today, they just acquired Mandiant, and Mandiant provides XDR or other security capabilities that enhance SIM solutions and SOAP solutions. Google doesn't have that solution yet. They are partnered with CrowdStrike, and CrowdStrike can be used in conjunction. And there's also integrations that can be enforced through some of the integrations with Workspace. Does that help answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah, it does.
Good question. Any other questions or?
Hey, so I'm going to do a follow-up on one more thing. So a lot of the way that I've heard Zero Trust kind of build is, look, you're not going to be relying on the VPN anymore because your device and your identity and the encryption is going to defend no matter where you're at, right? Essentially, I don't know if that's to say like VPN is now like it's just another tool in the belt, or if it's like, hey, we don't use this anymore, or what is your position, or do you have one on like how VPN plays into all this other stuff, and also in light of what I asked before of like endpoint device protection?
There are still use cases for VPNs, site to site, that type of thing. Those aren't going to go away. Specifically, and I heard you bring up IAP, or Identity Access Proxy. IAP is specific to HTTP or HTTPS communications. So for example, if you had an application that is web-based, you can lock down access to that application using IAP. Your Google identity would be used to get to that application. The real challenge is sometimes applications don't support that. Maybe they're in a data center, but even in a data center scenario, we can actually create an IAP connection to applications inside of a data center. We can get into some more details. If you like, we can have a conversation around what your specific environment is and talk about how to get rid of those VPNs where possible. But IAP in the larger sense is the solution for really eliminating VPN solutions.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, if no more questions, we can give y'all some time back. I first want to say thank you on behalf of myself and the Worsta team for all of y'all joining today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to either reach out to one of us or info@worsta.com after this this great webinar. Thank you, guys, and you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Of course.
Thank you.